So I wanted to just sit down and talk about a couple of films. I can't remember when was the last time that I did this at all, without it being a series or a kind of a top 10 or top 5, something like that. I should do more of this. I mean, I watch so many films. You can go check out my Letterboxd page. I think it would probably be letterboxd.com/RazorwireReviews. I'll put the link in the description. I'll try and add that to my usual plethora list of things that I do on the internet that you can follow and stalk. But you can see my Letterboxd account. I have every film I've watched since I think 2014 and 2015. And for every film I watched in 2014, I wrote a review of. I don't do that anymore. I haven't got the time to, unfortunately, but I log and rate every film I watch on Letterboxd. That's a great site. If you haven't used it before, go check it out. That's letterboxd.com. So it's not letterboxed with an ED, it's letterboxd.com. Great website. Most of you have seen it and use it anyway. So yeah, I watch so many films and there's so many I just don't talk about for whatever reason. And I get it's that kind of funk where I'm like, well, I can't talk about that because it has to be part of a series, or it has to be a part of the Epic Film Challenge, or it has to be a vlog of me watching it, or it has to be a director series or a review series, and on and on and on. So if you guys let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video, which hasn't even started yet, but once I get into it, if you like this kind of video from me, let me know, and I'll try and continue making just short, sweet and simple videos like this. Don't know if it's how sweet they are, but they will be short and simple. Actually, they won't be. They won't be short because it's me. They'll be at least simple. That's the only thing I can guarantee. Maybe not. Maybe I'll overthink things. Okay, I can't guarantee anything, but let me know what you think. I think it was a couple of years ago I did Friday movie reviews, I think it was called. I did it for about 3 months or something, and every Friday I talked about every film I watched over the past week. I loved doing that series, but it started to wane and people just lost interest, so I stopped doing it. I don't know if I'd continue to do it. If I bring that back, maybe I could continue that, resurrect it maybe. Anyway, right, on with the bloody the films I wanted to talk about, and anyone who's not a follower of my channel will have turned off by now, so that's a shame. But I wanted to talk about 2 documentaries that I saw from 2015. Again, I'm cramming to watch all the 2015 films I haven't seen yet before the Oscars, and just generally January and February I like to catch up on everything I missed the previous year before moving on with the next year's movies for the most part. Amy and Cobain, Montage of Heck. 2 documentaries that have a lot of similarities but both very different at the same time. They both well, first of all, from a personal perspective, they're both musicians who I have no interest in, have never had any interest in, and have no knowledge on. You know, Amy Winehouse, they try me to go to rehab, I say no, 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 that's all I know. Kurt Cobain, you know, da, 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 da. I don't even know the words to Smells Like Teen Spirit, but that's all I know, right? I know he killed himself, that's it. So, going into these 2 films, completely blind really, apart from just, you know, general iconography that you know of them. You know, I knew Kurt Cobain with the blonde hair and the stubble. I knew Amy Winehouse with the big beehive hair. That, again, just little things I knew, but that was it. And they're both films about musicians who were singer-songwriters and guitarists, who wrote their own songs, who both kind of were emblematic of the period of time in which they became rapidly famous. And then their descent was very quick, pretty much because of their untimely deaths at the age of 27, and they both were heroin addicts. Yeah, both died at the same age. I mean, it's crazy, and it's part of that whole 27 Club myth, legend thing, where I think Jimi Hendrix also died at age 27, some other popular musicians. So, yeah. But they're both very different films, and both of them also you can see how they became the people they were through a kind of a broken home in a way, parents that split up, and you know, it wasn't really a perfect home life at the beginning, and you see how that changes someone and makes them someone who can be easily enabled by these kinds of drugs and lifestyle, especially when you add in the pressure of fame, which also was something that seemed to be a disruptor to both of their lives. So it was very spooky to see these parallels. You know, you think of the early 90s in terms of pop culture, you think of Nirvana, for sure, that's up there. You think of the late 2000s, you think of, you know, Amy Winehouse. Her music was very big and popular in the late 2000s, and I keep trying to make this video, but my fiance keeps asking me for a reaction. I'm making a video I'm waiting for you to stop belling me so I can carry on. I love you. Steak sounds great. Don't reply, lol. And she's replying. Okay, right. So we'll just wait. Okay, there we go. Right. Are we good? We're good. I'll leave that in. Right. So we have these two musicians who very much were a part of their decade and their well, not even the decade. I mean, early 90s. You know, it's kind of late 80s for Nirvana. I'm not 100% sure, but that seems to be the case from the documentary I saw. Amy Winehouse very much just the late 2000s, and that was kind of it. She kind of had fallen off that kind of crest by the early 2000s. She died in 2011. So yeah, interesting to see how their lives are handled in these films. And what is interesting is that we have a generation now where home video was everywhere. You know, everyone had a camcorder, and so we see all these intimate home movies from Kurt Cobain's life, from Amy Winehouse's life. We get to see a visual picture, portrait of their entire lives. We don't get to kind of imagine what they looked like when they were walking and talking as young people through, you know, old photos. We get to see that in motion with these images. So let's just talk about Amy first. The first of the two films that I watched. Incredible film. It's been nominated for an Oscar, and I can see why. Fantastic film. I've heard that Senna is a lot better, and it's from the same makers, but I haven't watched that yet. But there was something very relatable to it that really got to me. Not relatable in terms of I saw myself in her, but I saw her in people that I've known. Not completely, not the full package, but pieces of her were very similar. I could take bits of her and put them back together again, and I could make people that I've known in my life. Especially again, she's from London, she's, you know, from the UK, and so again the accent, the mannerisms, the lifestyle in a certain sense. You know, I could identify bits of it in people that I've known, and so it hit very close to home in terms of her ultimate demise, and wondering what would happen if someone who I knew like that had become famous, and would they have been able to deal with it in the same way, having the same background and upbringing, and whether that's even a case of how she ended up the way she did, I don't know. But you see her from a very young age singing, going out performing. We see footage of her playing small gigs and things like that, and you know, it's a shame in a way. I mean, I see her when she's got the big beehive hair and she's got all the makeup on, and without all that, she's a very pretty girl, you know, and a very talented girl. And it just seems the whole film, it's just what a waste. You know, I mean, she lived and she enjoyed life. Make no mistake. There's a part in the film where she'd gotten off drugs for the Grammys, and her friend recalls that she went to see her on the stage, and she said, "This is so boring without drugs." You know, she didn't enjoy life without drugs at that point, and that's really sad. But you get to see. I mean, it's very nice because at parts the film will just drop out, and you'll just see her performing a song, and the lyrics will come up, and you get to just enjoy her music and see montage stuff of things of her life at that period. It's very, very well put together, very well edited, and also not radical but different in the fact that there are no talking heads in the entire film. If you know what a talking head is, very briefly, this is a talking head, just a shot of someone talking to the camera or just talking off camera. Yeah, I quite liked Amy Winehouse, you know, that kind of thing. And there's none of that in the film. There's a couple, but they're from archival interviews from different projects and stuff like that. The interviews recorded for this film were all done, I don't know whether they filmed them or not, but you only hear the audio. And so you'll see in the corner like voice of her father. And so you hear the voices of the people who are important to her in her life, like friends and fellow musicians and family members and friends from before she became famous. And they tell the story of her life along with these videos, these home videos that they found from friends and so on. And so it's really, really intimate. To a pretty harsh degree. I mean, there's pictures you see that she obviously took of herself and sent to people when she was in a very emaciated state, when she was on drugs, and it's really tough to see, you know. And even at the very end, I mean, not to spoil it, but you get to see her body being taken out of her house on the stretcher. I mean, it's covered, but you're seeing her body being moved into the van to be taken away, and that is a really haunting image. But at the same time, it does celebrate her life, it celebrates her music, and it's something I've never been interested in, but this has certainly opened my eyes. I can't say I'd go and listen to her stuff, maybe I will one day, but it definitely made me respect her more. And it made me feel a little bit ashamed myself as well. I asked someone, I won't say who it was, I said, what did you think of Amy Winehouse after I saw the film? And they said, well, she was a drug addict who got famous. And I just thought, but did I ever think much more than that myself? You know, when she died, I literally said to people when they said, oh, did you hear she died? I was like, yeah, it doesn't really surprise me, you know. And that's a shame, because she didn't die of a drug overdose, she died of alcohol poisoning, because she had bulimia. And it got to the point where her body was so weak that she couldn't handle the alcohol she was taking in, and that's what killed her. Even though she almost killed herself with drugs. But I mean, it's a spiraling downward slope when you get into that kind of stuff, and it was really sad to see people in her life come back into her life once she became famous, and it was cringe-worthily apparent that that is why they came back into her lives, and it was really just sad to see, you know. But at the same time, it celebrates her life. You know, one of her idols was Tony Bennett, and you get to see them doing a duet with each other. I think that was the last thing she recorded before she died, and it was great to see that little moment between the two. And I think the last word spoken in the film is from him, talking about how she was an amazing singer and what a loss it was, and a you know, loss of talent. Imagine that. Just imagine that for a second. That you do something that you love, and you have someone in that field who is like, you know, who you idolize, you think is the best. And imagine that you died early, and they make a film about your life, and the last person to get a word in is your idol, telling the world how great you were. I mean, there's something kind of just hauntingly beautiful about that idea, that as an idea. And so I think, you know, they've done her proud with that, and I just thought it was a great film. Very hard to watch at times, very well edited, very well put together, and a testament to her life, but also a cautionary tale, which is a shame. Now, Cobain Montage of Heck is very different. It employs the same kind of thing. There's not as many talking heads. There are still some, but not as many. Again, a lot of archival footage, home video footage, disturbing footage. Well, not disturbing, but very open kind of thing. There's like a scene where he sat with his daughter and he's just out of it. And they're saying to him, you know, come on, snap out. And he's like, I'm just tired, I'm just tired. And whether he was just tired or whether he was strung up on heroin, you don't know. And it makes you wonder, and it's a shame. But again, we see like old 8mm footage of him as a young boy, you know, saying literally into the microphone, "I'm Kurt Cobain," and you get to see the entire life, the entire short but brief life of Kurt Cobain. You get to see, and this one's even more personal because you get to see all of his journal entries, his diary entries, his drawings, the things that were in his head that he just put down on paper, and you get to see them on the screen, and they're edited like the way the words come out of the page, or the way they're scribbled out. I mean, it's beautiful editing, absolutely. I mean, as a film, it's better than Amy because the amount of the attention to detail with the editing and the flares they put in there seem to be very in tune with who he was as a person. If you know, it felt like he made it, which is kind of weird and interesting. And there's animated sections, like they've taken stuff that he recorded on just cassette tapes of him just playing a guitar in his living room, and they've visualized that with an animation of him sitting playing it. I mean, it's brilliant stuff. It really is. And if you're interested in Kurt Cobain, it's definitely worth a look. I wasn't at all, and I loved it. It definitely drags at points, maybe, but overall it's a really satisfying experience. But again, much like Amy, to the end it gets quite sad, but not so much as Amy, because they don't cover his death. And that was a point I didn't like. Because to me, when you make a film like this that so clearly starts at the beginning, it should end at the end. You know, if you're making a film like this that's so much about his life, you should tell the complete story. Because I didn't know what happened. The end of the film, again, spoilers, is him playing a very nice performance on MTV Unplugged, and then it just cuts to black and says, 2 weeks later, or a month later, sorry, Kurt killed himself. Directed by blah blah blah, and that was it, just the end. You know, and even me, from an editing point of view, like, he was playing this performance, he was really getting into it, and then he kind of finishes with this last vocal kind of, Ugh! And then he sat there with his guitar and he kind of turns around and then people clap. And then it cuts to black. And I would have cut it just as he, and then boom, cut to black. I mean, that's how I would have done it. So again, but that's me, you know, and I hate looking into it like that and thinking that I would know better, but I felt like it was building towards the end and it didn't. And I thought, oh, okay, so we're going to get to hear about his death, and then, oh no, cut to black, he died a month later at the end. You know, I think they say that he committed suicide, but I wanted to know what happened with that. You know, he left a suicide note. I had to look at this up on the internet and read into it and stuff. And while I enjoy that process of watching a film and looking it up afterwards, I wish that it had been presented in the film so we could have a full story for people who don't know everything about him. I'm sure the people who are diehard Kurt Cobain fans appreciated that. And I'm sure that's probably more people who are fans of his are going to watch this than people who aren't. So the majority, I think, is catered for in that instance, and it probably is a good move to just think, you know the story. We don't need to go into the circumstances that surrounded his death. But yeah, I found out that he was in some facility and he escaped. And he went, I don't even know where he went now, I've forgotten the details, but he killed himself with a shotgun. And there's been all these things about like conspiracies, whether he was murdered or not. I doubt that's even any water to that. It seems to me very, very clear that he was done with his own life. I mean, he left a suicide note, you know. And you can tell from the writings from his journal that he was done with life. And there was something in it that was so scary to me. And I related to him so much. And again, he's a guy whose parents split up, and you know, it's kind of a difficult home life. And then when you get the fame, when you get the money, and you get the drugs and the outlets, and that's where the slippery slope starts. And it's sad to see. But there's something really scary about it. It seemed to me, from what I read into it, and you can only read so much from these films, but it seemed to me like one of the big things that he was, one of the reasons that he killed himself, was that he knew he was hooked on heroin. He knew he couldn't get off it. Or he knew that he couldn't stay away from it forever. And he was afraid of his daughter becoming him. And he was afraid of her dying and losing her and being a failure as a father. And whenever I think about having kids, you know, it's something that I absolutely want more than anything. But it terrifies me at the same time. And I'm one of those people, I always think the worst. And I can't imagine how I'm going to cope as a father if I do get to be one, hopefully. I don't know how I would cope with just the idea of, you know, hey, if they fall down that step and hit their head, they could be dead. I think like that. Now, you don't need to leave a comment saying, oh, you don't need to be silly like that, Luke. I'm sorry, that's the way I am. And so I related so much to his, not pessimism, it's more than pessimism, his darker feelings towards that. And you can see that in the journal entries that he wrote, that are in the film, you know, that they took and put into the film. So yeah, I definitely, there was something very chilling about that he felt like, you know, that scared him, because that's something that scares me. And I'm sure I'll get over that. I'm sure that it's just a premature worry, but yeah, there was something very particularly touching about that. Not touching, like touched a raw nerve within me when I saw those things in the journal. I thought, shit, yeah, that's how I kind of feel, but he's kind of going through it with his daughter at a young age and stuff. And very intimate and open again. You get to see Courtney Love get her tits out, if that kind of thing interests you. If it does, fair enough. But you know, they don't pull any punches in this, and but it's interesting. I'm not going to go into Courtney Love at all, because any opinion I have on her based on this film is not something that I think is worth going into. All I'll say is I at least give her a modicum of respect for being completely honest about herself. I'll go into that. Well, I won't go into that. That's all I'll leave it. I won't go into any more than that. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Amy and Cobain Montage of Heck. I would have preferred to see Cobain Montage of Heck get a Oscar nomination, but Amy was great too. Both great films. And again, two people I had no interest in whatsoever from a musical standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, looking into them just because they were popular figures or anything like that. And so now I have more of a grasp on them. And maybe I will go listen to some Amy Winehouse at some point. Maybe I will go listen to Kurt Cobain at some point. I haven't done with either. So I can't say either documentary has greatly inspired me to go listen to their music, like perhaps the Pink Floyd documentary did many, many years ago and made me the biggest Pink Floyd fan I know. You know, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but to have that awareness now and to feel like I've seen someone's life flash before my eyes in 2 hours, it's both interesting and fascinating and kind of morbid and, again, cautionary tales, you know. I mean, I can't see myself ever going down the depths that they do, but it certainly gives you that reminder that you really shouldn't delve into the things that they were. But again, everyone's different, and it's hard to judge their lives from a 2-hour movie, but From what I've seen anyway. I definitely feel like I have a better understanding. I have 0 minutes left on the memory card. That's good timing. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought about this. Go see the films if you can somehow. If you have already, let me know what you thought about them, and I'll see you in the next video. And again, let me know what you thought about this kind of video. Me just sitting down talking about a few films or one film that I've seen that particularly I enjoyed. Because there's plenty I could talk about, trust me. It's just a matter of sitting down and filming a video like this, which doesn't take much effort. So, basic video. It wasn't short, it wasn't simple, wasn't sweet, but it was a video. So let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one.
So you might say he's a really nice guy, really, but if fucking don't cut shit with me. He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool.